he could have gotten people or even removed the people if he had the opportunity, because I don't know which hospital is closer to Ridge. 37, I believe, 37. But the distance is a little, you know, huge. If they were moving the person from there to 37, the person could have died anyway, you know. And so we're looking at the instance where people are agitated, they needed support. Do we not have enough nurses at the emergency unit? Emergency unit is an emergency unit. Emergency unit is an emergency unit. There should be enough people there working at the time. We also have the story of so many people, including myself, having to experience negligence in the hospitals. And so you see, when you're being faced with something like that, someone will tell you trauma response. You've seen it before. It's coming. You need to act a certain way before it becomes fatal, like we've already seen. So there was no, in fact, in law in this country, in our constitution or bylaw, Ralph has no rights to put his hands on anybody, especially a health worker. So that should be condemned. And so again, I can understand why people will be upset that why did this person touch somebody and then you come and you're embracing them.
Right.
That was wrong, totally wrong. But let's look at our health system. The Minister of Health has a lot of work to do. Because if we go to the Ridge Hospital, this big hospital, an emergency unit is not equipped with people to work on emergency cases, then there's a real problem. And this health system, we've talked about that it needs overhauling, it needs some proper structures put in place. The system needs to be working as a health system. This is what we're talking about. Do you get what I mean? And so these are some of the angles I'm looking at. And I'm like, you know what? Both angles should be looked at.
Right.
Do you get what I mean? Right. Yeah. So let's get into our stories.
Let's get into our stories for this morning and start off with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, as the OSP has released a mid-year report for 2025 stalling cases undergoing investigations and other related matters. Now, the report covers activities and investigations conducted by the office into corruption and corruption-related offences. Now, in its half-year update as of July 2025, the OSP said it has secured 6 convictions and the payment of restitution to the Republic during the period under review. According to the report, 23 persons are currently standing trial with 67 cases of investigations ongoing. Now, the cases at full investigation stage includes the investigations into corruption and corruption-related offences at the Minerals Income Investment Fund, MMIF, between 2020 and 2024, the Ghana Airports Company Limited, the Ghana Education Service, investigations into the award and execution of a contract between the Ghana Revenue Authority to Tata Consulting Services for the implementation of integrated tax administration systems for the domestic tax revenue division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, among others. Now, the OSP stressed that it is actively pursuing its objections or its objects with increased momentum by undertaking multiple investigations, filing more cases before the courts, recovering and confiscating tainted assets, as well as aggressively working to make corruption a high-risk and costly enterprise. Let's walk you through the details of the media report. Well, we start off with the number of cases that have been outlined. The first on the list is Ibrahim Kofi Sessa and others. And who is he? Well, Ibrahim Kofi Sessa is a technician, local government service official, as well as Anthony Jesse, a GES IT officer, as well as Said Al Hassan, as well as Francis Asari, a businessman, and Gloria Aqua. Now, the charges against these individuals include bribery, using public office for profit, and money laundering related to unlawful sale of GES appointment letters. Now, the status of the investigation, or the status of the case, well, the case has been adjourned to the 16th of October 2025. We'll keep our tabs on this and bring you updates. There's also the conversation of Mustafa Abdul Hamid and 9 others. Some weeks ago was a heated conversation where the individuals involved, Mustafa Abdul Hamid, former CEO of the National Petroleum Authority, and 9 others, including 3 corporate entities. The charges against them are 29 counts, including conspiracy to commit extortion, extortion by a public officer using public office for profit, conspiracy to commit money laundering, as well as involving nearly 300 million Ghana cedis and seized assets valued at over 70 million Ghana cedis. Now, what's the status of this case? The case has been adjourned to August 26, 2025. We know that earlier the individuals involved were able to secure bail under certain conditions. In coming weeks, we get to see what the trial case is or the status of the case will be moving forward. There's also that of Ejenim Boateng Eje. He's a former CEO of the Public Procurement Authority, PPA. Now, his charges are 8 counts, including using public office for profit and directly or indirectly influencing procurement to obtain unfair advantage in public contracts. Now, the trial is ongoing and has been adjourned to September or October 20, 2025. There's also that of Charles Bisu. Now, Charles Bisu is the former secretary to the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, and 2 others, businessman Andy Thomas Asari, who has been convicted via plea bargain. Now, the charges against them are using public office for profit, corruption by a public officer, bribery, and illicit gifts for fast-tracked mining concessions. Now, the status of the case has also been adjourned to the 28th of August 2025. That's in coming week. Somewhere next week, we'll get to see the case progress, 28th of October 2025. Now, key developments in the probe, or key highlights in the year under review in the report released by the OSP is the case of Madam Cecilia Abena-Dapaah. She is the former sanitation minister. Now, it says that the former minister Cecilia Abena-Dapaah and associates were initially investigated for suspected corruption and money laundering activities. Suspected corruption activities. Then it says that the case was referred to the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, which initially returned it due to the mandated organization. But as of May 2025, EOCO has formally received a docket to review and potentially pursue these financial irregularities, with the OSP providing full support. So this, according to the OSP, the latest development is EOCO has formally received a docket, or we realize that you would recall that some weeks ago, EOCO, once the EOCO team was constituted, led by Bernard Atta, well, EOCO asked for this docket from the OSP to probe further into the Cecilia Abena-Dapaah case for financial irregularities. The docket, according to the OSP, has been given to EOCO, and EOCO is going to pursue actively. Then there's that of Kenneth Nana-Yaw Gyesi, the former finance minister of the country. Now, the former finance minister, Kenneth Nana-Yaw Ofori-Atta, and his chief of cabinet, Ernest Darko Akore, were also among those under investigation for alleged corruption and manipulating public procurement in their favor. Now, the latest development says that the OSP has now issued an Interpol red notice and initiated extradition processes. So that is the latest update according to the 2024 report from the OSP. Now, let's walk you through the details or the summary of the cases. Now, prosecutions as of the OSP half-year yearly report 2025 shows that, well, the Republic versus Mustafa Abdul Hamid and 9 others, including the organizations, are a part of the prosecution cases. There's the Republic versus Cesar Seidu and 3 others. There's the Republic versus Charles Bisu. There is the Republic versus Ibrahim Kofi Cesar and another. There is the Republic versus Tahidu Yakubu and 5 others. There's also the Republic versus Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka. That case, you would recall that once it was taken to court, well, the court sort of threw it out at the time, and then the OSP has re-entered an appeal at the appeals court and is going after that case as well. Well, there's also other cases that the OSP is also going after, but this is the summary of the cases. 7 convictions have been secured so far, and this is coming in from the OSP. Now, persons standing trial, that's cases that are still in court, are 23 cases. Now, cases under investigation, 67. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Other cases that are being explored by the office are pegged at 152 cases being pegged at the OSP's office. This looks like the OSP, according to the yearly reports, is up to some good, chasing after individuals who are at the heart of corruption and corruption-related offenses. But we know that the OSP is not doing this alone. The OSP is doing this with the support of EOCO and other relevant institutions. We'll keep our tabs on this particular conversation, bring you updates subsequently as well. But for the full details of the OSP statement and the yearly report, visit mx24online.com. Now, away from that, the Inspector General of Police, Christian Tete Yohuno, has assured Ghanaians that the upcoming Akwetia by-election will be peaceful and successful. Speaking to the media ahead of the stakeholder meeting with political parties and the Electoral Commission, the IGP urged parties to contribute constructive ideas that will pave the way for a smooth electoral process. And he's calling on political parties to fully cooperate and actively participate in the engagement, while also appealing to the Electoral Commission to clearly outline the rules of the exercise to avoid disputes. Here are highlights from his engagement with the political parties. Well, we'll get you that video in other, well, it will be made available on social media. But for more updates, you can visit mx24online.com. But let's still stay on the conversation in Akwetia, because the Electoral Commission has announced that it will begin printing ballot papers for the upcoming Akwetia by-elections today, Wednesday, August 2025. Addressing journalists in Accra on Tuesday, August 19, 2025, following a meeting convened by the IGP, the director of Electoral Services at the EC, Benjamin Bano Bio, disclosed that all preparations for the by-elections are complete. He stated that procurement processes have been finalized and the Commission is ready to deliver a smooth and credible by-election in Akwetia.
IGP invited the Electoral Commission, the political parties involved in the Akwetia by-elections. And then there were some media personnel who were also present. All that we discussed was the way forward to ensure a very successful election in Akwetia, by-election. Electoral Commission on our part, we indicated that we are ready. As at now, we are going to start printing of ballots from tomorrow. Recruitment has already been done. We have procured all the materials required for the elections. And so we are ready. Political parties also raise issues concerning security, and the police, led by the IGP, has assured us that there will be effective security to ensure that voters go about their normal duties on the D-Day in a very peaceful manner. And therefore, the people should have trust in the system. And nobody is going to intimidate anybody. What happened in Abrikuma North was raised, but the police assured is that is a thing of the past, and that they are on the ground. They are going to ensure that nobody takes the law into his or her own hands. So for now, we are all geared toward Akwetia by-election, and we are all hopeful that the security, as explained by the police, will be effective. And Electoral Commission is also poised to ensure that we deliver our mandate in a very professional manner. We just call on the political parties to go by the rules for all of us to have a very successful by-elections in Akwetia. Thank you.
Did the political parties, any of them have any concerns?
Concerns were raised, as I said. Security concerns were raised, and the police dealt with that. You know, based on what happened in Abrikuma North, some of them were suspicious and they were apprehensive. But the police has taken us through the security measures put in place. And now we are all aware of what's going to happen, and we are all sure that the police will deliver on its mandate.
Still shining the spotlight on Akwetia, the Director of Elections and IT for the National Democratic Congress, Rashid Tanko Computer, has assured that the NDC is committed to the peace plan for the upcoming Akwetia by-elections. The poll scheduled for September 2nd was necessitated by the death of the sitting NP NSE Alkumi. Now, the Inspector General of Police has also met political parties and assured of peaceful measures in the Akwetia by-election. Let's listen to Tanko Computer.
They've given us their roadmap, their deployment plan, indicating they are bringing all their regional commanders and then their POMAC members to beef up security, and that they are not going to leave any stone unturned to make sure that there's enough security at the place. And so they are not expecting anybody to come with any macho men or personal security and all that. The EC also brief us what they intend to do in terms of accreditation. They'll make sure that all our leadership who are going to do the monitoring observation will be given accreditation. And we are very clear in our mind that the NDC, we are committed to the peace plan, the process they've put in place. But we are mindful of the activity of our opponents who will come in there with dangerous weapons. You remember what happened at Abrikuma North? That triggered all this problem. And then there was a pepper spray. One of their leaders, our commission, had pepper spray in her back. She came to the place and was asking unnecessary questions. To the extent she was spraying that one, even to officers of the police as well as the EC officials. I mean, all these things caused the problem at that polling stations. So telling them they need to beef up security and make sure that the fact that you are a former minister or a former MP or a MP, if you don't have accreditation, you have no business at the polling station. And I also made it easy to make sure that they post the results at the end of the collation in each of the polling stations, because it's a requirement under Regulation 39(3)(c) that at the end of the collation they need to put one there, so that if there's anything we can rely on that one too. The EC said yes, and they're also saying that we should make sure that our supporters don't tamper with those things when they put it out there. I mean, so we're clear in our mind. The police have given us all the assurance.
That was the NDC's Rashid Tanko computer. But now the national organizer of the New Patriotic Party, Henry Nana Boakye, popularly known as Nana B, has assured that the party will take lawful steps to safeguarding its members during the upcoming Akwetia by-election scheduled for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Referencing the unrest during the Ablekuma North rerun, he's calling on the IGP to arrest perpetrators.
First of all, this was a good meeting. We raised some important issues. The police gave us the assurances, but we said that assurances are built on confidence. We also expressed our dissatisfaction with the conduct of the Ghana police, especially in the recently held rerun of about 19 polling stations in Ablekuma North. We said that thugs who were linked to the NDC, who caused mayhem, their images are all over, the videos all over. And as we speak, the Ghana police has not effected any decisive arrest. We saw a communique that stated that they have arrested 2 persons. We don't know what came up. We don't have any update. Were they put before the court? Are they on remand? We don't even know anything at all. So we were very, very, very strong on this particular point. And then the IGP said that, look, they are also serious about it, and we should even expect.
Well, that was Henry Nana Boakye speaking ahead of the Akwetia by-election. Now, let's still talk about by-elections, as the Electoral Commission of Ghana has announced that a parliamentary by-election for the Tamale Central constituency will be held on September 30, 2025. The by-election has been necessitated by the tragic death of the sitting member of Parliament, Murtala Muhammad Ibrahim. And a press release issued yesterday, the EC stated that the vacancy triggers the constitutional requirement under Article 1125 to elect a new representative to Parliament. Now, prospective candidates are invited to pick up their nomination forms via the Commission's website beginning today, August 20, 2025, until September 10, 2025. The EC released a statement. Let's walk you through the details of the statement. For more news and updates on this particular incident or the full details of the statement, visit mx24online.com. But away from that, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, GRNMA, has issued a firm 48-hour ultimatum to the Ghana Police Service to arrest the ringleader and his accomplice behind the recent attack on health workers at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Ridge. Now, the association has warned that a further action, if their demand is not met within the 48-hour stipulated time, emphasizing that nurses at the hospital's emergency unit must feel safe. Hence, they might take decisive actions, laying down their tools. The association visited the hospital and engaged the media.
There were about 50 guys that came, but those who laid their hands on the lady are about 8, including Ralph himself. And therefore, if he's not arrested within 48 hours, we shall advise ourselves. Oh, it's very simple. I mean, if nurses and midwives in Ghana say that they will advise themselves, I think that you don't need a soothsayer to know what we want to do, because we think that we are not safe.
The association says it will consider further action if the government fails to respond within the stated time frame.
I don't know at what material moment that the minister embraced the gentleman.
That was the General Secretary of the party speaking of the association, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, speaking about the decision they would take if government does not meet their 48-hour ultimatum. But away from that, the Gold Board Tribunal was officially inaugurated in a ceremony at the Ministry of Finance, where the Finance Minister, Dr. Ato Forsing, swore in the tribunal's chairperson and members. Now, the ad hoc committee tribunal established under the Ghana Gold Board Act 2025 is tasked with handling appeals related to the decisions of the Ghana Gold Board, that is Gold Board, including the Licensing and Dispute Resolution Committee. Now, for the full details and members involved in this particular committee set up by the Gold Board, swore in by the Finance Minister, visit mx24online.com. But that's all for the morning news on the AM Club. My name is Augustine Adam Kobiti Saints. Do enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you so much, Augusta, for coming through with those stories. Interesting times ahead, isn't it? Our political space is super saturated.
Yeah.
But also looking at great results coming from there, really and truly. I do not think that we used to be so scared of by-elections as we are right now. So I think things can shift a little bit to benefit us as a country. But thank you, Augusta, for coming through. It's time for us to get into some sports right after this.
Visit www.mx24online.com for news, exclusive behind-the-scenes videos, up-to-the-minute sports updates, and the latest broken pen stories now. Experience more of MX24 Online. Visit mx24online.com today. MX24. Fun. Fearless.
Welcome back to the AM Club right here on MX24. My name is Miriam Udwak-Menta, and it's time for us to get into sports right here on the AM Club. And sports is brought to you by Betway. Now it's time to get rewarded as the next big sports betting influencer with Betway. Place bets and share your codes with friends, fans, and followers. If they place their bets using your code, you'll earn 4% of their wager. Doesn't matter if it's a win or lose. If they bet, you earn cash, and the more people that bet with your code, the more you'll earn. Well, start betting, sharing, and winning and with Bet Influencer, exclusive to Betway. Terms and conditions definitely do apply. Regulated by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet the responsible way. Betway, get way more. Now, let's get into our stories. The Ghana Olympic Committee, GOC, has backed the national men's 4x100 relay team, urging corporate and state institutions to invest in their performance. The GOC has sponsored the team's camping in Texas, USA, where the top seven men 100 million sprinters, including Abdul Rashid Saminu, Benjamin Azamati, Ibrahim Fuseni, Barnabas Age, and Mustafa Bokpin, Isaac Bochoy, and Captain Joe Paul Amwa will train under Coach George Pincock. The team is focused on perfecting their baton exchange and techniques and preparing for the World Championship. GOC President Richard Akpokavi Esquire expressed confidence in the team's potential and called on Ghana to support them in their preparation. The GOC has also extended similar support to various federations, demonstrating its